Learning is part of how education will take place in the future for kids in high school, most likely. So we need to start being proactive and moving in that direction rather than trying to tie the hands of people that are doing that. And hopefully, we do have teachers this year that are being trained to provide some online classes. Hopefully we'll have some blended coursework in the future where kids can be getting seat time as well as doing online work. But, at the superintendent's meeting the other day, they said they really believe virtual charter schools will be eliminated. I mean, the competition there will go away because regular public schools will be doing more and more with online learning. I don't think limiting the enrollment for kids that believe that's where they need to be is something that we want to promote. I think, we're concerned about every child's education, and let's help them get that.
The best way they can.
Right.
They should be focused more on quality standards than trying to
limit the number.
Yeah.
Yep. Very true. Okay, so that seems like we're a no then on 12, and 13 seemed good. 14 seemed logical. 15, we always like that, the cast forward costing. And then that comes to Mary Ellen, 16.
16. A couple reasons why I'm not so sure that this is a bad thing. I know when charter schools first were begun, there were horror stories about lack of oversight and so forth, but many charter schools are being operated now within the structure of public schools. La Crosse is very, very successful in the number of charter schools that they're working with. We explored earlier this year perhaps becoming involved with some of our neighboring districts in charter schools. I think if we limit, charter schools serve a purpose to be different than in ways than a traditional school. Many charter schools work with team teaching. Many charter schools work with a very, very strong interdisciplinary approach. And I think you limit those options if you don't have flexibility within certification. I would give you a classic example. A charter school that is perhaps with an arts emphasis and wants to run a segment of its units at, say, a 6th grade level with a high emphasis on art history, dance, music, literature, and perhaps history. Where are you going to find a person who is certified in all of those areas? But you may be able to find 2 people with certification and background. If we limit that, we may be limiting options for kids. And I guess my dream is that someday we will be looking at some of those options in our district, and I would hate to see us limited.
And that was your comment on here, that if it's okay for the charter schools, then it should be possibly at some point okay for public schools to be more generous in their licensure.
And I guess we were also considering, charter schools have so many other ways in which they can be unique and special in terms of how they set their school calendar, the length of their school days, the curriculum. Does it have to be about licensing teachers?
And I guess I'm looking at it from a totally instructional point. And when charter schools are set up, selecting the staff who have the skills you need for that charter school. And I guess I'm looking at successful charter schools in surrounding districts and how they operate and the flexibility that they need. So I'm kind of coming from that. I guess I wish we had that flexibility as well, but I don't believe that that's going to happen in the next 5 years. But we may have an opportunity in our district in the next 5 years, and I would hate to see us limited.
And this particular resolution has been up over and over again since I was serving on the resolution committee, and that is, really, they were looking at the fact that within the state, the teachers are required to have licensure and meet the certification requirements. In the charter schools, they do not, and therefore, there have been schools where, in fact, individuals who had no certifications were teaching certain advanced mathematics courses. And was that truly meeting the needs of the students in that school? That's where their concern was. And so that I know, and I don't know which way to go, one way or other, because of the limitations or vice versa. But this is the reason why this has come up, because within the public schools, teachers have to meet certification requirements. Shouldn't that be the case with the charter schools as well?
And I think that this is probably more directed at charter schools that are operating much more out of the parameters of a district, say, like La Crosse or Eau Claire, or some of the very successful charter schools that we see in this area.
This was one
Some of the
resolutions.
same limitations that are making those charter schools successful also hinder us from doing things that we think we can do for successful. And clearly, Joan is right, and I just think that different areas of the country where they talk about unlicensed teachers and the problems they're having with those, so I understand fully the need in the public school, but it's like, how do you balance the two of them?
This was a resolution last year, and it was debated quite a bit, and then voted down.
And I'm looking at it from a very narrow perspective. Are you licensed in both English and history, or art and history, or are you not licensed at all? I mean, you're not licensed at all, there's major problems with that. I'm looking at the fine points of licensure versus overall licensure. And
So, Deb, do you have a firm idea?
Oh, yeah, real firm on that one.
judgment on debate.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. And if they decide to, bring in a little more verbiage in here to define, to make licensure and to define, just like you stated, is there, it'll be wild, huh? Judy speaks from experience
You get
last
some
year.
English majors up there. We'll pick it apart.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can go on verbiage and see what it looks like, if it stays as it's stated. Do we feel that that's stringent enough, as far as keeping it clear that the charter schools have the top-notch teachers they need, whether they're licensed or not, or if they're staying competitive with our public
They're
schools?
already licensed. They're already licensed in one subject, and they would be able to teach an additional subjects under the supervision of another Wisconsin certified teacher who is licensed in that.
In that specialty.
So you're not talking about unlicensed people teaching in the schools. You're talking about the fine points of licensure.
Would that definition be extended then to someone who holds a substitute teacher license being supervised by a fully certified teacher?
You have to have a license in a particular subject.
Okay.
You can only teach additional subjects, and only if you're under the supervision and direction of somebody who is
Has an actual
certified.
license in that subject.
So, for example, if you had an English and a history teacher team teaching, the English teacher could teach some history lessons in that team situation, or you could divide the kids up and they both could be doing a lesson, and it would be taught by a certified teacher, because the lessons would be jointly planned by the two and you would be under the supervision.
So this particular resolution would allow charter schools to do something that we currently can't do.
Correct.